Well, I think at first, like everyone, probably started smoking cigarettes, because that was probably the cool thing to do, if you like, probably at like 14, 15. To move on to weed is just the next thing to do, really. Your friends that you're with, everyone starts to smoke it, and it becomes just like the thing, you know, on a Friday, well, we'll go meet up and then we'll smoke some weed, and you know, you do that for 12 months or so, and it then gets boring as well, doesn't it, really? It's just like anything, you just want to move on to the next thing. I was 16, and we bought some ecstasy tablets online, which was quite a big jump, to be fair, because ecstasy obviously kills people. It's quite an intense drug. We stayed with ecstasy and MDMA for quite a while, until I was at least 18, 19, and then I just moved on to cocaine, which is probably where it got really, really, really shitty, to be fair. There is one drug that I took that I have regretted it, and that's ket. It's not like an upper, it's more of like a downer, and obviously you can go into a bad trip. So I do remember one time taking a bit too much ket, and it was I was in a ket hole, they call it. So, but yeah, any other drugs, you would never really regret it instantly. It was always the day after that would be a massive regret. The feelings that like coke or ecstasy or anything like that can give your brain is something that, you know, you can't describe to anyone that hasn't taken it. So obviously, for obvious reasons, it's easy to like them. You're popular because that's who you are. You own that identity quite a lot. That, yeah, I'll do drugs. I've got the drugs. I can get you drugs. I can do this. Or, you know, it's that whole dynamic. There's got to be a negative reaction to that, and the negative reaction is the worst feelings that I could have ever felt in my life. You know, like having a come down. Just severe anxiety and depression, because you know, you would spend 2 days in your bed. You wouldn't want to see anyone, you couldn't eat anything, you couldn't do anything. But it's crazy, because that still wouldn't stop you doing them. What it does is it does fill you with confidence, so you don't really realise you are in any compromising situations. But looking back on it now, yeah, you know, there was stuff that I had done whilst on drugs that now I couldn't even think about doing it, but also it scares me to think that how did someone not get hurt, or how did I not get put in jail for it. When I went to a festival, I took quite a lot of MDMA, and then for the week after, this was quite a scary thing, to be fair, because it was like the week after taking it. But I remember lying in bed and like genuinely saying like, oh, like there's somebody I can see somebody in the bed, and I was just really scared for like a whole week. I remember I was just really, really scared, like to even get up and go to the toilet in the night, because I was just like convinced there was people in there. And what was more scary about it was the fact that I hadn't took the drugs for a good 3, 4, 5 days. I think once you've made that decision to be in a group of people that are doing that kind of, as unfortunate as it sounds, does dictate where you go. Do you know what I mean? It takes quite a lot to then break off from that path that you're already on. Being so young and taking drugs is really hard, especially because I come from a family that's really, really nice, and living this double life, if you like, of like being a normal, angry, aggressive, upset, hormonal teenager, and then mixing a come down in there and the anxiety attacks through taking these drugs. Yeah, it was a very volatile situation, and you're having to hide who you are and try and do your exams and try and think about what you want to do for your whole life. Like, you know, you're getting asked questions like, what do you want to do when you leave school? And I'm still smoking weed. The thing when you take drugs is you don't want to admit any of this. Do you know what I mean? You don't want to admit that the negative effects are happening. You don't want to come to terms with the fact that it's having this big effect. It's only when you really step away from it that then you can see what had happened. But yeah, in the moment of it, it's just like, it's easy to just block it out and just say, no, it'll be fine, or not think about it, or it's not to do with the drugs, just so you can take them again the following weekend or whatever. I guess I missed out on loads of family time, really. I just absolutely didn't want to be around my family really loads, or I was just grumpy, or I wouldn't be there for them, really. This is like 16, 17, just angry and volatile, and just not a nice person to be around at all. You know that it's 7 in the morning, you know, you've got 5 or 6 hours where you've got to go and do life and put on the front that no one knows you've just done all these drugs, and you're really, really in probably the worst place you could ever be mentally, but you've still got to go and do your life. So for me, they're the times that absolutely will always stick with me, of like, don't want to do this anymore, don't want to be here, because the thoughts that you'd be having of just like wanting more drugs, but you can feel that they're leaving your body, so you're on an absolute come down. They're the moments for me that really probably kicked me into gear to stop doing it, because I can never really remember being on drugs, but I can remember every single time of when the night would end and it was just like, this is absolutely the worst place in the world to be. The impacts of drugs on my mental health today are very, very severe. Taking drugs as much as I did, as often as I did, had a dramatic anxiety-inducing, depressive state effect. But it's more now that I'm 26 that I'm like realising that sometimes I can't find happiness, because my brain's learned to be happy that it needs to take those drugs. So when you stop taking them, you know, my head really, really struggled. So a massive, massive, massive impact nowadays is trying to be happy without taking drugs. It's really shaped my character to be an anxious person. Sometimes can be depressed. You know, you can have a day where you literally just don't want to do anything. You can't do anything. And I put that down to taking the drugs. You would have an event maybe, but an event could be just going to the pub with the lads. You would be dreading it almost. But I think it's because you knew what was coming really. You knew you were about to take a load of drugs and put yourself into that situation where you're just so heightened. You know, if you'd started taking drugs at 8 o'clock at night, you know, you wouldn't stop sniffing coke till 7 in the morning. You know, it's that time at like 7 in the morning where it wouldn't be far to say that you would literally rather kill yourself than be in that moment. You have to like find a way to try and go to sleep, or just try and wait 12 hours for the drugs to leave your body. But in that time, it was horrible. 5 years later, you're still having the same problems, but just not as intense. But it's like it can last for like a year instead of like 10 hours. From when I was 18, 19, 20 doing it, 21, 22, to now 26 not taking drugs, it's like, yeah, that's how it stayed with me. I would gamble like £2,000-3,000 in a night, gone. So then your anxiety at like 7 in the morning, where you'd realise you've done that, and you almost come round at like 7 in the morning, like the you that doesn't do drugs comes back, and it's like, what the fuck have you done? So like at 7 in the morning, when you're like, how have I just went out for a few drinks here, ended up spending £200-300 on coke, and now it's 7 in the morning and I've got work at 9. It's like, how have you done it? It's just such a loss of control feeling. But like, yeah, it's almost like the real you comes back and is like, wow, what have you done? If only could have been there like the night before. To deal with the anxiety and the come downs and the stress and all the crap that comes with it, you have to build like quite a strong persona. So you have to like switch from one mode to another. So I got really good at that. So I could literally, well, I thought I could live my life and live this party life or whatever, or this separate life. And I found myself doing it more often because I had a house and had the money. It was just happening more often. It was so easy to do it because I wasn't at my parents' house. I had the money, so it was like scary how much it was starting to happen more. No, I guess I always just thought this is how it's going to be. But I always had a battle, obviously, because I obviously didn't want to take drugs at all, or even as much as I did. Or I didn't like who I was when I took drugs. Was a big thing. I didn't like who it turned me into. There was always a big part of me that was not wanting to do what I was doing, but no one could see that because I was just the Josh that was going out partying. I was the one getting drugs for people. I was the one that was, so no one could see that, but like really inside I was like really not wanting to do it. If you're someone who, like me, that was questioning why am I doing it or not liking it, then there's obviously something there that, yeah, that's not you that's actually doing the drugs. It's something that's you're just doing it because you think you have to, or you don't know anything else. I was a dick when I was on drugs. I was just like a You know, when I took drugs, I was just cocky and arrogant and dismissive, and you know, I would take the mick out of people. I could do anything that there was no good really. Now, because I'm trying to be really kind and nice and everything and genuine, it's not nice to know that's how I was with people and how I was with anyone else, especially because I know how much of an impact, you know, being like that has on other people. So I would put it this way, I don't think I'll ever be that person again. Well, I kind of think the journey of stopping started when I started taking them, because I do recall not wanting to do them the whole time, but it never really had a strong voice until I was, you know, 20, maybe 21, getting into relationships, trying to leave that past behind. You're like the black sheep. If you, especially nowadays, even as an adult, there's so many people that do it. If you try and be the one that doesn't, you are the odd one out. It's so hard to then be like, to actually convince yourself that what you're choosing is right because everyone else is telling you just do it or whatever. I'm changing as a person in my life, but yeah, I've still got this thing that's with me, and that thing was using drugs whenever I would go out. At any event, I couldn't do it without it. It's then that I realised, all right, well, I've maybe got to work on this. But it still took 2 years of doing it and fucking up and then doing it again and until then you know, I went to see a counsellor, and through that process was able to let it go, leave it in the past. I never had any hope, never. Literally never. It was only when I met my recent partner really that I then really kicked myself into gear and was honest with my partner and started to be more honest. Also, I was seeking the counsellor, all that stuff helped, but before then, yeah, I had literally none. Like, I was really lost. There's been a lot of points in my life though where I have distanced myself from people because of drugs. So looking back, I can see that I was actually trying. You know what I mean? There was, when I was 17, I remember I'd got an apprenticeship and I'd tried to distance myself from people that were smoking weed and bits, but breaking that cycle is probably the hardest thing, because you're going to be the odd one out, aren't you? You know, no one really pats you on the back and says, oh, you're doing a really good thing there by trying to choose not to do it. And I never had that ever. Through the whole journey, like, putting on a persona stops you dealing with anything. So if you're around people where you don't have to put the persona on, then your actual self can say, yeah, I'm not going to do that. And then you can also get advice and you can talk and you can say, you know, how you're feeling, and it's actually heard properly. It's like a crucial part really, because if there's a part of you that doesn't want to take drugs or anything like that, then that part of you has to be more visible in your everyday life. Otherwise, you're just going to go into your persona and then you're going to take drugs. I started having like chain reaction light bulb moments of like, yeah, I can see how this has shaped me now. And then I think once you get that awareness, I don't think personally there's any going back. I think if someone has that awareness, they won't do them again. I stepped away from people that weren't good for me, and I could tell that they weren't good for me, and I had to step away from them. I can still be friends with them, but like, if they're going out and doing something, I choose actively not to go there because it'll put me in a compromising situation. And you are literally choosing a different path. You're at a fork in the road and you're choosing that. And you've got to kind of be a bit cutthroat with it. If someone gets funny with you and says, oh, why are you not doing this? I do it all the time. Why are you not coming here? I'm now known as the person who doesn't go anywhere. Now, if I ever saw anyone struggling now, I'm absolutely all over being like, just talk to me, just talk. Because that's what I didn't do for a long time. I didn't have the space to do it. I did the people, and by space I mean the safe environment where you weren't going to get judged, you weren't going to get criticised, you weren't going to get told that you should just do it or whatever. I never had that for a long time. So yeah, for me, I would implore anyone to just absolutely just talk. Martin, my counsellor, had said when I was struggling with taking drugs quite a lot, I talk about the safe space that he provided. There's something he said that stuck with me till to this day. You know, you can't expect to just, if you're saying I don't want to take drugs, it's not just going to happen the next day. It's okay that you will keep doing it, But just know that eventually, one day, like me, it did just snap and go, yeah, no, I've done it enough. I think like getting outdoors and just really appreciating sitting on top of one of the mountains in the lakes is just a feeling of fulfillment, that it kind of fills that hole, if you like. Whatever the hole the drugs were filling, and living that lifestyle now still needs to be filled, but obviously you just can't fill it with drugs. So getting outdoors, doing nice mindful things, nice walks, it does really, really provide a feeling that's that's content and happy. I love letting people know that I used to have a big struggle with drugs. You've got to be honest. You have to. I had to be honest to get to where I am now. Yeah, I did have a slip up. So when I'd stopped taking drugs, I'd stopped taking them for potentially quite a long time. I was really proud of myself. I literally, within the first hour or two of being in this situation, just knew I was going to take them, and I did take them. You did beat myself up a little bit, but yeah, I don't hold on to it, because if I hold on to it, then I carry it, then I'll end up, end up just, going back to that kind of life. So potentially might have a slip up again. I've got to have that sort of perspective that, like anything, if you've got an addictive personality, like with gambling, I'm not naive to the fact that I might gamble again. But it's just a journey. Keep talking about it. Keep being honest. Keep distancing myself. It's not bad. It gets very easy. It gets a lot easier than you would think. You actually learn that how you find happiness in life isn't through drugs, so you actually gravitate more towards not doing it anyway. It becomes a lot easier to distance yourself. Or if you notice that particular people you're with aren't for you and other people are, you'll naturally gravitate towards the people that are, if they just make you feel nice, and you don't have to go into the persona zone, oh, I need to take drugs or anything like that. I've really learnt to be aware of myself and who I am as a person, and you become quite true with yourself. You then don't need to take the drugs because you actually are your true self. Your true self doesn't want to take the drugs. And through walking, talking, therapy, just doing normal nice things, getting outdoors, you can then be at one with yourself, and that's the biggest prevention, I think. The journey that I'm on now is so heavily focused around trying to be as mindful as I can, and trying to control my anxiety as much as I can. Drugs doesn't fit into that world. I've got to live with how much it's impacted my mental health, and I've got to now learn to manage that. Whereas if I'd have learned to manage it at 17, I probably would be so further along in my journey now and stuff, but all the negatives come out as well. So the anxiety, the overthinking, worrying, a lot of stuff like that does have a real big impact. I think even at work, to be fair, I get quite paranoid still, and I think all of that is well, I know it's all linked to when I was from my drug use. If I hadn't stopped taking drugs and spending all that money on them, financially, first of all, it would be, I wouldn't have the house I have, I wouldn't have potentially the job that I have, and looking at the sort of 6 years of my life of using drugs and, all the partying and all that, it did progressively get worse. So I definitely wouldn't be anywhere where I am now. I won't like to think where I would be now, to be fair. I've never thought about that yet. Life now feels a lot better. The biggest thing is that I can enjoy a social situation. You actually come away having had a good time and you've not had to take drugs, and that for me is really good. I don't feel like I'm controlled by it. I can choose what I want to do. Obviously, I'll still protect myself in situations I'm in, but it's exciting to know that what I've learned about myself and anxieties and how your head works and your life in general up to now has been really, really, really fulfilling. And then to think, well, I've potentially got, this journey of however long I'm left on this earth, then it's really quite exciting, yeah, because how much I've achieved in 2 years and what I know about myself now, yeah, the next 2 years, who knows where it will take it in 2 years if I can stay on this journey, which hopefully I will.